They better get it before Tony Parker come back in.
Oh, what a
move.
play by Irving. He gives you a move with every part of his body.
Curly Neal is somewhere saying, yeah, I like that. I used to do that for the Globetrotters. You look at his ball handling and then able to finish with the left. Talk about Kyrie and his ball handling. Look at him right here, going in amongst the trees, finishing strong in here. I don't know how he splits that. That's like Mark Price like back in the day with the left hand.
I will tell you, he got the best left-hand finish in the NBA, and I've seen it maybe ever.
That was Kyrie ridiculous. And one of the things that really inspired me was watching his footwork in that video. The way he was spinning around, getting so low, and all the angles that were so tough to be in. That was his advantage. You know, he's not the tallest player in the game, but he uses his agility, his ability to, like, you know, trick you into his move, and then, like, he'll just break you down. So we looked at his footwork and was like, how do we really, you know, take advantage of that and really unleash his full potential and his full abilities, and allow him to be faster in all directions when he's moving on the court. So, you know, how do you be faster? It starts with the traction underneath the foot, and then just also like straighter ankle alignment. When your ankle is straighter in line, you're not going to break your ankle. So
Yes.
you're actually able to drive to the basket faster, and without loss of motion. So the other thing that we looked at too was just like this idea of banking.
Wow.
And the way that you know, the way he cuts from, you know, and changes direction is so incredibly fast. How do we even take some inspiration from, say, like the velodrome and stuff, and tracks and motorcycles? So that was one thing I was really inspired by. Was this too? Was like, oh, look how low they get. You know, look how they aren't skidding out, and what's going on here. And I was like, I don't know much about motorcycles or cars or anything like that, but I was like, what other sport and what other sports move at such incredible low angles and change of directions like Kyrie? And I kind of was like, oh, these motorcycle guys that race, like, they get so low, their knees are like centimeters away from the ground. Like, let's look at that a little bit more, you know. And so just for me, I was inspired by their tires that they have on the bikes, how they have this rounded geometry to them. And so for me, I was looking at, like, okay, how do we apply that to the shoe? Can we create more of a rounded bottom geometry so that when Kyrie's making his spin moves and he's getting so low at a cutting angle, that he could take advantage of that surface that's rounded and not skid out? And the other thing too is stability, that straighter ankle alignment. You know, how do we be inspired by the tendons in the foot that help stabilize? So is there something in the upper, which is top of the shoe, that can mimic nature in the foot, right? So the design, this was like an early kind of rendering of it. I didn't like drawing laces for some reason. Really difficult, so I didn't draw. But like the strap, as you can see on that upper, directly mimic that tendon that was the foot. So that helps kind of give you a proprioception of additional sort of containment and stability in the foot. And then underfoot, you have this really nice rounded kind of shape to it that mimic that motorcycle tire. And then some of the details that we got into with the shoe were, for me, the personal experience of a signature shoe had to not only embody his performance needs, but also his story and the things that are important to him, that I think, you know, Kyrie fans would want to know about, you know. So things like his mother passed away when he was younger, and so that was something that was really dear to him and wanting to incorporate. So the Elizabeth call out is his mom, and then JBY was just be you. That was something that he really believed in as a quote for any kid out there. And then H&H is something he actually has tattooed on his chest. Hungry and humble, so always stay hungry and humble. And so a few of the details we kind of wanted to incorporate into the shoe. And then we got into like different colorways and stuff. So that was, and then that was the presentation I showed him. But I'll kind of share with you. I'm going to stop sharing and start sharing another thing.
Sure. And
So,
you know, as you're doing that, I just want to say, Leo, one thing that's really cool is that I think a lot of my students see, you know, like Air Jordans, and they see really cool shoes and they think, oh, that's a cool shoe. And they don't really think that there's like storytelling behind
yeah,
the shoe. They don't really think about like everything that might go into it. And it's super special to hear you talk about like the story of the athlete and all of the different kinds of storytelling that you're doing with a shoe. You know, that's so neat that
yeah,
an object can tell the story.
totally. You know, there's so much like storytelling that goes on in shoes. They're not just equipment. So again, for me, these are just some more direct things I pulled off my computer here. But you know, looking at his foot angles, the way he's cutting, you see, you know, that angle where his foot is being placed is almost like
Yeah.
90 degrees right now to his body. And then how that other foot right there, how his toe drags that much on the upper. And then like the cutting angle, the things that when he's changing directions, look at the forces that are being applied
Wow.
that side of the shoe. And obviously the inspiration here. And then for me, I just started like doodling, you know, what is it? Is it that kind of rounded geometry that's happening? And then how to then apply that to the shoe. I'll just kind of quickly blast through some of this stuff. So just looking at how, you know, a traditional shoe looks more flat. And so if you started more rounded, you can allow him to cut at angles. But then on straights, when he's just running straight, it'll still deflect and kind of like bend and form to the flat surface of the court, right? So stuff like that. And this was like a first really, you know, quick doodle, really loose. And that's something that I always start with, just something really loose. But then here's the other thing that's kind of fun. I'll take a shoe and I'll tape it up. I'll make it look like a mummy. And I'll tape up what I want to design onto it, the features, the things that I'm trying to problem solve in my head. Because the sketches can only take you so far. And what's cool is like you see a whole nother dimension, literally, it's a 3-dimensional shape when you work on a real object. So there's so many designs that I've had where like I got stuck in the 2D world where I was just noodling in a sketchbook or on an iPad, and I just had to take a break. I had to step away from that, and I had to go just grab a shoe, it could be any shoe, and I'll just mummify it and then I'll draw on top of it. I'll sometimes even cut parts off of it and then start building an actual shoe from it. So I'll actually stitch it up and stuff like that. It's been a while since I've done that, but this is an example where I was really looking at the like angle of the strap and how that thing mimicked that tendon in the foot. So these are different views of it, and then just like even the shape of the toe here mimicked how he was dragging his toe, as you saw in that picture earlier. That kind of stuff.
So Leo, this taping method, is this something that you came up with, or did somebody else kind of guide you in this direction?
No, I mean, this is something that I guess is like pretty common in the shoe world.
Okay. Okay.
And a lot of times in shoemaking, this goes back to like old classic shoemaking. They'll take the last, which is the foot form that they build the shoe on, that gives you the nice shape and everything. A lot of times in the past it was made out of wood. Now it's like plastic and stuff. But they'll tape onto that, and then they'll draw the design on there, like a wingtip shoe or whatever, right? And then they'll slowly peel off those pieces, lay them flat, and then build and then trace those pieces onto leather, and then they'll cut them out, and then you stitch it together. You know, so it's a very like classic way of designing. This happens to be not on the last, but on a shoe. So not necessarily for me to tear it apart and build. It's more for me to see this design in 3 dimensions. But a lot of designers do it. It's very, very common. So
okay.
sometimes I get a little elaborate with it, like where probably more elaborate than some people would go to the depths of, but it's fun. You get caught in the moment, you know. So with that, then you kind of like, all right, I know how this thing's gonna look, and sometimes I like to share this kind of stuff even with the athletes sometimes. So because sometimes if you just show them this, they're like, okay, cool, it's a pretty drawing, and it throws them off. Like they're like, you know, when you're not an artist and you see a pretty drawing, they're like, cool, it's awesome, you know, but they may actually hate it. They may actually hate the design because it's they're being thrown off by the pretty picture.
So yeah, so they don't understand like actually what it would look like if it were a real shoe.
Exactly. So having them see like this might actually help them see it in reality, even though it's really ugly and it's a taped up thing. It may actually help them like see it, you know. So well, I'll go from here to, you know, tidying it up a little bit more in a drawing that's like shaded up and everything, and then I'll share another screen. Sorry, it's all over the place here.
Oh no, this is such a treat for us to see all of these, like this process that you use. It's awesome.
Yeah. So then, you know, we'll get into the technical stuff. You know, we'll have, this is what we call a tooling drawing. So it's a midsole, outsole, and the cushioning, the out and the traction elements, and you know, I'll go in and I don't do the 3D. That's really tedious. But what I'll do is draw the lines in 2D in Illustrator, and draw over a 3D. Actually, most of the time, for me at least, I start in 2D. I'll build out the full orthographic views and stuff like that, and then that gets sent to a team that does 3D, and then they send me back this. And then if there's still a lot of problems with it, I'll go in and what we call redline it and kind of just make revisions to it and say like, or maybe I started out with this line that was kind of low and I'm like, I don't really like the way that flows. I'll draw this line that's up a little more scooped and then, you know, falls down a little bit more. And then I'll make call outs to say, I want this shape to actually align to the strap and this and that. So, you know, you get from really loose sketches to like down to the details of exactly, you know, how far the airbag is and all that stuff. So, and this is just something fun I was telling you about, where when I started at RISD, I loved so many different things about, oh, there's another drawing here. This is the KD6. So just fun little inspirations from where he grew up, the gym that he played basketball in, Seat Pleasant Activity Center. So like the colorway of this shoe was inspired by that. The floor mat that I saw when I visited that gym, to, you know, just looking at his new 35 logo and how it was inspired by various different things like the pixelation and all that stuff. And so anyway, that was a fun one. But this one here was cool because it's an opportunity for me to not just do the same old renderings and sketches that I typically would do, but like have some fun with it and just be creative and act more like an illustrator and more like a painter type of mindset of just, I could do a normal exploded view, but let's have some fun with it. Let's throw some splatter in the back and make it look kind of 80s and stuff. And and then you can zoom into the details and you can see like even like having some fun with just what if the wires are loose, you know, and you can see the edges of the frayed fabric and stuff. But yeah, and then, you know, even down to just the reflection of the highlights and all that stuff and translucent rubber, just trying to apply everything I learned growing up from my art teacher teaching me perspective, to me obsessing about like photorealism, to then going to RISD and just letting loose and throwing paint down, splattering, to all that stuff. And so this is like, for me, one of my favorite little drawing sketches that I did, that I feel like embodies like kind of what I do and just like the fun that I want to try and bring into the product.
Leo, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. I think this is going to mean so much to my students.
Great. I hope they enjoy it. bore him too much.
I doubt it.